1988, I opened my clinic. It's a private clinic in Sweden, here in Stockholm. At that time, there wasn't much information about Chinese medicine. There were few acupuncture books. But the patients in Sweden were a bit different from Chinese patients because there were some other diseases. When I went to China, for instance, I couldn't find any. I went to Nanjing in 1989, and there was no allergic patients I could find. And in Sweden, we had every day in my clinic allergic patients. 92, I went back to Beijing. There was still no allergic diseases patients I could find there. So I had to use Chinese medicine with my experience to develop how to treat allergic diseases. Nowadays it's common in China, I heard. I haven't been there for a while. There's a lot of emphasis on evidence base. One of the reasons is to get acupuncture more recognized in the world. And I urge to use another method as well, and that method is to try to make Chinese medicine popular among people in general, among lay people. And I have an idea. So I want to raise the awareness in the world of the treasure house of CM, Chinese medicine, and its practical use for everybody. Acupuncture, as you know, is one of the famous branches of Chinese medicine. Lifestyle is another branch resting on the theoretical foundations of Chinese medicine. And it's not really used. It's very underused. So even in the first chapter of the famous classic Huangdi Neijing, Su Wen, the first chapter, it says, it talks about how to live a long and healthy life. And it says there, what you do is you have to model your life after yin and yang. That's what they say. And they also say some other words to explain what they're doing. So even though these theories are defined a long time ago around Chinese medicine, they are actually applicable independent on religions, cultures, and also in modern times. And in modern times we see an epidemic of chronic diseases of different types than what we saw even 50 years ago. And also patients are getting more and more medicated. So they are nowadays multi-medicated if you compare to just 30 years ago. There's a big difference when we meet patients in the clinic. And there's also different body types coming up. So we see lots of people changing their bodily form. Most people in Sweden, they respect acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine too. But they don't know how to use Chinese medicine in their daily life, how to apply Chinese medicine daily. If they knew how to do this, I'm sure that this would make a big impact on public health. I have a special interest in how to use Chinese medicine in daily life, in daily decisions. So Chinese medicine is very much in line with Chinese medicine to delegate the responsibility to individuals, to help, to support the individuals, to take control over their own lives. And how do we do this? Well, what we need is marketing a simple easy to learn parts of Chinese medicine, which gives more or less quick and obvious effects for the motivation on their health and quality of life. So they have to notice difference to get motivated to want to learn more. Another positive side with Chinese medicine is that it's not either or thinking. You don't have to leave your belief system. You can just expand your vision. So typical for Chinese classical thinking is both thinking. So you're never threatened by someone who has another opinion, for instance. So how do we do this? I hope you're wondering, Peter, how could you convince me? How is there a method of doing this? My conviction is that this simple and easy to learn way is teaching typology. To divide people into different types, and this is rather famous and universal and historical to do this. To understand, to personalize medicine, you usually divide into different types. And famous examples is, of course, astrology, famous in both Asia and Europe. It's so famous that people become professionals and they turn to this in weekly magazines to help decisions in their lives. There are several types of typologies for instance, regarding medicine. And a famous one that I think has become very popular is the Indian Ayurveda, at least in Sweden. And what they do is they divide people into different types, and they have advice coming along with these types. So I hear patients talk about Ayurveda, I'm this type, and I'm not, and that type, and that, therefore I should eat like this. So if they can become this popular in Ayurveda, we can do it too in Chinese medicine. And in Chinese medicine, it's a very good division into 4 different types. So this is very helpful for giving advice, especially when it comes to food advice. So any diet in the world could be organized within this type of thinking. And it's the typology of 4. So this has ancient roots in China, where you divide into yin-yang, but to be able to personalize something, you at least need the number 4. So you need 2 yang and 2 yin to be able to personalize something. So this is a kind of fundamental idea in Chinese medicine. For instance, it's one of the bases for Wu Xing, for 5 elements, that you have 4 different types of qi, 4 different qualities in life or humans, and you have to add a center to it, a 5th element. And usually it's described as the earth element, and in people it's the spleen stomach. So the spleen earth is the center. And the spleen is the organ working with the body. So it's working to produce flesh and produce the body. So by looking at the body, it gives you an assessment of the spleen, how the spleen is working. And it also gives you ideas of what type of diet should you change to be able to change your constitutional type. So if we look at this classically, we all try to go back to Huangding Neijing, to Su Wen, or Ling Shu. And in Su Wen, chapter 20, he asks, how do you conduct an examination, how to proceed? Chibo answers, one must first assess the physical appearances, fat, lean condition to regulate depletion-repletion of the patient. Later in history, Zhu Danxi and later Zhang Jiebin also clarified this point and became more specified in this. In Su Wen 21, it says, "In those who are brave, the qi continues to flow and the pounding ends by itself. In those who are timid, the qi is stuck, and this causes disease. Hence, when it's said, the way of diagnosing disease, you have to observe if the person is brave or timid, its nature, or the bones, flesh, and skin. Then this is considered the law of diagnosis." When they talk about being brave or timid, it's an assessment of strength, according to commentators. So you have to look at the person's strength. Other people would say you have to look at the person's qi or shen, so the heavenly part of a person, but you have to look at the body, as they're saying in this quote. So look at the qi and the body, and then you get an idea of a person that you can connect to the number 4. In Su Wen 26, it says, "The fact is, for nourishing the spirit, one must know whether the physical appearance is fat or lean." In chapter 25 in Su Wen, the headline of this chapter is "Discourse on Treasuring Life, Preserving Physical Appearance." Huangdi asked, "Covered by heaven and carried by earth, all the myriad things have come to existence. None has nobler position than man." Man is standing in between heaven and earth, as you know. "Man comes to life through the qi of heaven and earth. He matures in accordance with the laws of the 4 seasons." So number 4 is typically coming back in many quotes of classical texts. Rulers and common people, they all wish to preserve their physical appearance. In Su Wen, it's in Ling Shu, chapter 77, they talk about that what the physician usually makes mistakes, it's that he forgets to ask the patient what he's eating. And this is an even more important point to make nowadays in modern people. What is a person eating at? What is he doing every day? For not only food, medicines also. The 4 types are mentioned, for instance, in Ling Shu 72. They talk about the major yin type, minor yin type, major yang, and minor yang type. WHO mentions this when it comes to defining Chinese medicine. It mentions the 4 constitution medicine patterns. So they mention the large yang, large yin, small yin. And this is very important to make this distinction. And yes, and I call the system, when I teach it, I call the system yin yang and 4 types. And it's a guide to know what to eat, which diet to choose, and how much and when. These are 4 different types. And if I don't have much more time, I will make some concluding ideas. So if you look at these people, if we take one of them, you can usually see the body, how the body is. It's usually reflected in the face at the same time. And if we look at this, the smaller yin type, if you're thin and weak at the same time, it's usually reflected in this area. Around the mouth, it's reflecting the spleen condition to a certain part. and around this, in level with the nose, it's reflecting on the lungs, and below the eyes, so above these two and below these two, usually reflective of the kidneys. And these are the three that's important for the assessment of qi, for the qi of the person. And this is a rather more and more common type of body where you see it's thin. The four corners of the body, as we call it in Chinese medicine, the four limbs are weaker, but there is a bigger stomach. The abdomen is swollen. So this is described in aging as a pathology typically connected to spleen pathology. And then it describes what happens when you have this. So you have blockages around the body. But you have the obstruction in the abdomen as a proof of the spleen becoming weaker, but the transportation to the four corners of the body is getting blocked. And this affects all organs. And it also, as you know, the spleen is lifting qi. It's an important organ to lift qi up to the head. And actually you can also see that these persons have smaller brains, actually. So this is kind of typical for the start of insulin resistance, metabolic syndromes, connected to very many diseases. And for instance, cardiovascular diseases, inflammations, lower levels of glutathione, and therefore lower ability to detoxify and to handle oxidative stress. And it's also connected to intestinal permeability and many diseases connected to it. Actually, sarcopenia, as it's called, when it becomes a bit too severe, is actually connected to almost all age-related problems. And a study showed that it's even a better predictor of cardiovascular disease than hypertension. So, okay, I think my time is out, so I'll try to finish here. And I hope that many people are interested in learning and teaching this to the public, to people in general. And I think this is a way to realize the power of Chinese medicine when it comes to from the family level upwards. Okay, thank you very much for your interest.